Hi there. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Arthritis Life podcast, where we share arthritis life stories and tips for thriving with autoimmune arthritis. My name is Cheryl Crow, and I am passionate about helping people navigate real life with arthritis beyond joint pain. I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, and I'm also a mom, occupational therapist, video creator, support group leader, and I created the Room to Thrive self-management program. I am so excited to help you live a more empowered life with arthritis. We're going to cover everything from kitchen life hacks to navigating the healthcare system to coping with friends who just don't get it. Seriously, no topic is going to be off limits on this podcast. My interviewees and I share our honest stories of how chronic illness affects our lives. This includes discussions about mental health, sex, shame, pregnancy, body image, advocacy, self-acceptance, and so much more. You'll hear stories from all ends of the spectrum, from a person who's living in medicated remission from psoriatic arthritis to somebody living with severe mobility restrictions and severe pain from rheumatoid arthritis. You'll hear how people manage their conditions in different ways, like medications, mindfulness, movement, social support, work accommodations, and so much more. You'll also hear from rheumatology experts who just get it. We'll dive deep into the science behind chronic pain and what's the latest evidence for lifestyle changes that can help you thrive with arthritis, including exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and more. This is your chance to sit down and chat with a friend who's been there. Ready to figure out how to manage your arthritis life? Let's get started. All right. I am so excited to have not one, but two guests here today. We are going to be doing a deeper dive into the newest Room to Thrive certified facilitators, Eileen Davidson, whose name you may recognize from essentially every other episode for the last year. And then also Gittel Aguilar, who you might have actually heard from her on episode 36, which is the poetry episode from 2021, or episode 64 from Overwhelmed to Confident, Gittel and Camille's story, or What's in Gittel's Coping Toolbox, episode 94, or Redefining Thriving, episode 172, or Mindful Social Media, episode 184. So thank you, Eileen, for coming back on your sixth time, and Eileen for coming back on the more than we can count. But if you do want to hear more about either their personal stories, also Eileen's personal story is on episode 31, From Devastated to Patient Leader, and then episode 142, What Does Remission Mean to Patients, plus all the Rumor Has It episodes, which are co-hosted by Eileen and I. Now that I gave that brief overview of where they can find the deep dive, can you first, Gittel, let me know, where do you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
All right. Hi, everybody. I am from Southern California, born and raised in downtown LA. My diagnosis that brings me to Room to Thrive is ankylosing spondylitis, although I'm a collector like a lot of us tend to be, and I have more than that diagnosis. But we'll just stick to that one for now.
Yeah, do you mind mentioning your GI as well?
Yeah, I have ankylosing spondylitis, I have Crohn's disease, and then I also deal with depression and anxiety.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing. And yeah, Crohn's disease is a known cause of joint inflammation as well, which is something I honestly didn't know till I didn't even learn that in occupational therapy school. So that's why I want to make sure to mention that as well. And what about you, Eileen, in case anyone forgot, or this is their first episode?
I do have a fairly new diagnosis.
That's true.
I get to say it again. My name is Eileen. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia. My original diagnosis was rheumatoid arthritis, which I still very much have. But in December 2025, I was also diagnosed with non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis. And I have a lot of fun extra conditions that come along with that, like fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, anxiety, depression. And I've also dealt with women's health issues, endometriosis, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and comorbidities like hypertension. That's been a fun one to deal with. Just collecting forms of arthritis like Pokemon cards.
Yeah. Yeah, you are unfortunately in good company, as Gittel has actually coined congratulations. Like,
that was actually a different member at this point. I don't even remember, but I credit them. But yeah, congratulations, because it's that two sides of that coin thing.
Yeah, like it's good that you got these diagnoses so that you can maybe have some of a treatment plan and some clarity about what's going on in your body. And congratulations that you're in a supportive environment, but condolences that you have to deal with this now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And to those who may be new to the podcast or my programs, I created the Room to Thrive program in 2020. I had started envisioning it in 2019 as a program that would be potentially able to be done in person in Seattle or online, and then quickly pivoted to online only during the pandemic. But the idea is basically, I almost called it Arthritis School or like an orientation program. But the goal of Room to Thrive is to lead people through this step-by-step curriculum of evidence-based tools to manage their condition. That's in the self-paced course. And then we have the option of the course plus support group, which I have been facilitating from 2020 to 2025. And then last year I started training a select group. I feel like I'm like in the X-Men or something. A select group of hand-picked individuals who have done a lot, who have taken the program before and who are interested in becoming certified facilitators themselves. So that's a little bit of the background to how we ended up where we are today with you two gearing up to facilitate your first group, the two of you being the lead facilitators starting in May 2026. So having said all of that, I would love to know, Eileen, first, what made you interested in being a facilitator, a Room to Thrive facilitator?
There was a few reasons. One particularly that I can think of for myself personally is I've actually hosted in-person support groups before, and it was a lot for me to physically do. So I struggled to do that. And then other times it's just been opportunities that just maybe weren't the best fit for me. I was really appreciative when you put the call out for facilitators because I could still do my role as a support group host, but it's actually easier on me as somebody living with arthritis because the work is already there and set up for me. So I'm not using all my energy to set up rather than I can use it to facilitate because I really did enjoy being a support group host when I was doing it in person and for other various groups.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I just was thinking as you were sharing that one of the support group facilitator is like wearing multiple hats, right? You're part almost like coach, like health coach, where you're educating people and answering their questions. And then you're also like emotional support. You're facilitating emotional support. And I think in your case, you've done so much. In case people don't already follow you on chroniceileen.com, you've done so much patient education already in even an informal role just through your blogs for Creaky Joints and your own website. That's great experience too.
Yeah. And I guess another reason is now you remind me is I have been a patient partner in research since 2018. I've gone to so many rheumatology research conferences, been part of so many educational materials, created them myself, written them about myself. Everything else is I've been a very involved patient advocate. So I have a lot of knowledge and I don't like keeping it all in. This is also an opportunity for me to teach others, which I do enjoy. So that education and awareness part. And it's not just rheumatoid arthritis I know of. I also work for the International Foundation of Autoimmune and Autoinflammatory Arthritis, where we cover 23 other conditions, which I already knew about Crohn's induced arthritis. So it's all I do know for other conditions too. So it's nice to use that knowledge where I can.
Yeah, 100%. And I know both you and I have been, and I know Gittel too, have been motivated by, to some degree, there's an intrinsic motivation to just facilitate a support group, right? You're just like, I remember how I felt when I was first diagnosed, so overwhelmed. And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to take that knowledge and support others. And the other part, I know lately, you and I have both been a little bit obsessed with also helping people avoid the pitfalls of misinformation and scams. And anyway, so I'm just trying to, if you haven't followed Eileen's page lately, she's been exposing some really bad. She's doing a good job exposing bad scams. There we go.
Am I allowed to say the B word on here?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm using my bitch side for the greater good by exposing misinformation and scams.
Yeah.
So there's more to come.
A lot more to come. And Gittel, sorry, I I just was wanting to add a bunch of stuff to her, but please let me know. Yeah. What made you interested in this role?
I, first of all, just love everything Eileen said, especially it reminded me of the whole, like, there's no gatekeeping here. Here, take all my knowledge. Here's all the things I know. Maybe it'll relate to you, maybe not, but at least you have something. And I love that. For me, it was a journey of wanting, but not knowing where to put my limited energy and wanting to turn my pain into purpose, kind of a thing. That's another phrase that I borrowed. It's not an original coin by me, but that idea was like, give me something to make this all not worth it, but at least like I can be an alchemist about it thing and just do something about it. And then also, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it also was because I wanted to take some stuff off your plate, Cheryl. I knew that you were very busy, and I was like, I know that this is one area where I can hopefully help. And in that vein also, it was that if I help out, hopefully that'll open up and expand your group's reach to more folk for different schedules and things like that, because I know that there were days that you couldn't do, but I could. So that was a big push for me as well.
I love that. Thank you for mentioning that. And just as you're talking, I'm also thinking about, for both of you, having both of you have a different background from me too, and that you bring that to your facilitations. So Gittel, you're Latina. I don't have that experience. You speak 2 languages. You understand a different culture from the ground up. And Eileen, you're a single mom, and you have spoken previously about having a high ACEs score, like a childhood adverse events, which I have literally the opposite. Like I have a positive outlier childhood, which has shaped me, but it also sometimes can give me a blind spot, right? Sometimes I live in the little la land where everyone has a mom and dad that are really amazing and supportive, and I know that's not the case. So I think, not to unsell myself, I'm still a good facilitator, but having a diversity of facilitators is really important to me, regardless of my own schedule too.
Yeah. And I would like to just add, I'm not the touchy emotions, like feely person, although I guess I am. But so I like the way that you describe the relationship between me and you, Cheryl, is where you're the light and I'm like the dark. And please, your quote from your TV show, if you would just plug it in right now.
Oh yeah, if any listeners are familiar with this TV show Parks and Recreation, there's a couple in the show, Andy and April, and Andy is played by Chris Pratt, and he's like the Labrador Retriever or Golden Retriever, and then April is like the black cat, and they're getting ready for a Halloween party, and April was like, "There's people will die," and then Andy's like, "Oh, fun!" And
so basically, there's different variety of folk here to speak to, and I like it because it highlights that arthritis affects so many different kinds of people, and we can learn from so many different people as well.
Yeah. So you go, GT, you go ahead.
I just want to say, and Eileen, I am happy to be the golden retriever to your black cat.
Yeah. I was gonna say, that's why you two, I've match made you together, because I think it's a great counterbalance. And also I do think, like, I know and I love myself, right? I love my bubbly energy because that's who I am. But I also know that some people are not gonna want that. They might want a more either calm energy or more serious energy, or more, that really fucking sucks. I will still say those things, but sometimes being able to offer different facilitators for different people's desires is really important. But one more thing I wanted to make sure to highlight for you, Gittel, is your experience as a teacher. And can you say a little bit more about that?
I am actually planning on bringing that up as an answer to one of your other questions.
Oh, she's so good. She's such a teacher. I love it. Yeah, never mind. Okay, stay tuned. That's a teaser. That's a teaser for later. But so, from your perspective, actually, I'll go with Gittel first. Yeah, why is a program like Rheum to Thrive especially important for people with inflammatory forms of arthritis?
This is actually where I wanted to talk about that congratulations idea.
Okay, perfect.
Because it is, I don't know if the word I'm looking for is rare or just hard to find sometimes people who really get it. And especially a lot of us, speaking of the whole black cat dark humor thing, like a lot of us use dark humor to cope with this stuff. And not everyone understands that. And sometimes it leads to more isolation and feeling disconnected from people, like almost more of like the evidence of not belonging to this able-bodied world anymore. And so for me, the really big importance is that solidarity and the connection with people who get it. Like that's like another phrase is you don't get it until you get it. And until you get a diagnosis, basically. And even then, it's like I had undiagnosed chronic pain for 15 years. So even if you don't have a diagnosis, you can still get it. Yeah. But yeah, that feeling of congratulations that not everyone can understand right away. Like, why are you happy to get this? It's because I finally have an answer for something, and that could lead to possible treatment. And other people are like, so you're happy to be sick? And it's no, that's not at all what I'm saying. But I understand that it's hard to understand this. It's hard to get it unless you get it.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. What about you, Eileen? Like, why do you think this kind of program is so important?
There's a few reasons. First and foremost, like any support group, why people are driven to do it and why they go to a support group is they at one point felt alone. So it offers those people who are newly diagnosed to feel less alone, and those people who are they're not maybe recently diagnosed, but they know what it's like to be able to get back to somebody who might be newly diagnosed. Of course, the education part of it helps fight misinformation. It's credible information that you can find online by reliable sources, including Cheryl, who created it, who is a occupational therapist, and has lived experience. She's not trying to sell you something that will heal you, cure you, reverse you, things like that. It's thriving, living with the disease. That is realistic advice. And it's also very relatable to us. So it's by people who live with the condition. So very relatable. And I think because it covers all aspects of living with arthritis, from fatigue, sleep, mental health to different kinds of arthritis. So it's very well put together. And when I remember when I was first diagnosed in 2015, this is before Zoom classes and things. So there's a program at the arthritis clinic, and I have to go pick all these different days to go downtown, go to this class, probably on a bad day. And it was exhausting. It would take just going to that class would then make me exhausted later. So it's just really convenient to have it all in one program.
Yeah, that was definitely my goal in designing it and having it be, in case I didn't explain this earlier, there is a pre-recorded self-paced course that leads people through the Room to Thrive framework, which it's an acronym. We love acronyms, but the T is tools for pain and fatigue. The H is helpful/healthy habits like nutrition, sleep, and exercise. The R is relationships and social life. The I of Thrive is inner world. So stress management, coping. The V is values and valued activities. And then the E is executive functions. That's like symptom tracking, adulting, stuff like that.
And also the really cool part is I've noticed, like, when I went to those sessions at the arthritis clinic that I was going to, you were not really allowed to talk to people during the sessions about what you were learning or how you would actually apply it to your life and things. You're given this short time and you weren't. Yeah, I remember a lot of people wanted to talk to me because I just started blogging and stuff at that point. And I remember the facilitator of those educational groups, the social worker, he was just like getting annoyed. He's like, no, we got to move on. So I actually appreciate the way that you've done it so that you can have the education. Okay, you know what you would want to ask question-wise, or maybe is how can I apply that to my life if I have this so-and-so barrier because of my arthritis? You can actually talk to other people about it. It's just not just taking that information that you've done in the program, but then a discussion, because it's usually each group is different parts of the module. You can get a little bit more, especially if you're kind of lost and confused on something that was said, or you just want some advice on how that can actually maybe apply to your life. So there's many reasons why I like the structure of it. Gives time for patients to actually communicate.
Yeah, 100%. GT, what would you add? Or Gitel?
Yeah, I was like, that is such a good point. Oh yeah, I forgot to say that at the beginning. I go by Gitel or GT, either one is
Yeah.
But yeah, that is such a, oh no, brain fog, hold on. That was such a great point. Eileen, remind me what your point was. It was so good.
It's like
very
flipped
well
classroom
structured.
model.
Oh yes, I got it. Yes, thank you so much. No, it was when you were saying like you couldn't talk to other people and things like that. I was like, another reason why I really value the support group is because it makes the abstract, like hypothetical, like a concrete way of thinking about different people who are dealing with this stuff. Like it's not just me and like people I read about in books and stuff like that. It's me and all these people in the group. And we've talked about this before, where when it comes to giving yourself grace and self-compassion, sometimes it's way easier to do that to other people than to yourself. But I'll turn it around when I feel myself being hard on myself and be like, is this something that I would say to Cheryl or to Eileen or to like fill in the blank person that I know from group? If I would never say these things to them, why am I thinking them about myself? And that has really been invaluable as well, part of joining a support group.
I was thinking as you said that, it's almost like a badge that you earn, like the first time you bring up something to the group and you're like, I feel like I'm really, if you have a negative thought about yourself, you're like, oh, I don't know why it's so hard for me to figure out my fatigue. And everyone else is, it's hard because it's hard. It's not hard because you're doing it wrong. Like none of us have 100% handle on our pain or fatigue all the time, unless you're in remission, in which case, amazing. But so that the normalization of the symptoms or the phenomena we're going through, and like you said, I've thought the same thing too. I can't tell you how many times in the last 6 years of doing these groups, I've been saying something to someone else, and as I say it, I'm like, I need to say this to myself. This is so much nicer than how I treat myself in my own head. So I love that. And yeah, just to get to a little tiny bit of granular level, there is like a suggested video or videos of the week that people can watch on their own time prior to the meeting. And then on the topic of the week, and like Eileen said, then they can come prepared to the live meeting to use that precious like live time we have to problem solve through it. Because it's like, yeah, a lot of times if you're thinking about patient education, people are just given these lists, do this, don't do that, don't do that. And it's like, okay, how? Like how do we actually implement this in our lives? And having an accountability partner too in the group through the facilitator and the group members has been really great. There's people who are like, okay, I'm going to tell you all next week that I walked 1 mile a day, at least 3 days in the week. And then I want you guys to hold me accountable. Next week, we're going to check in, or whatever the goal is. And speaking of that, is there anything that you wanted to share that stood out to you? Although Eileen first, when you co-facilitated, this seems like a long time ago now, but you co-facilitated of the cohort that was September 2025 to January 2026. Did anything stand out to you in terms of your experience co-facilitating it, or what you saw the participants gain from it?
I'll say what I gained having a co-facilitator was being able to give myself grace and not feeling bad for having to cancel a meeting if my disease was being bumpy or I knew I was going to flare because I had a busy time. That was fantastic to have Gittel and Chrissy be able to be backups for me, because even though we want to be facilitators all the time, it is hard because we are also people living with the condition. But for the participants, I think they all usually start off really quiet, timid of each other first, and then eventually they start to warm up and then get to know each other. They maybe will pair with somebody or another 2 people, whatever, and make friends. They'll share advice things that they've never really been able to talk to anyone else, or hear people explain things in words that they didn't know how to put together. So there's just many benefits for people to be in either a single facilitator or a co-facilitator session.
Yeah, I love that. I resonate with that a lot. Having done it myself alone for a long time, I also definitely loved having multiple people, if nothing else, than just for the brain fog moments where you're like, wait, what was I going to say? Yeah, T, what stood out to you about your experience?
Yeah, whenever I try to do this, I'm always like, how does Cheryl do this? She does it all. But no, what stood out to me with the actual members of the group was watching them, as Eileen was saying, go from like quiet to engaged, to go from like this place where they felt like they gained ownership over their experiences and what was happening to them, and self-assurance about it. And then also, because of the group, having validation and reassurance. So it was beautiful watching that happen, like it almost like a cocoon to a butterfly thing. And it's not to say, oh, it's over, you graduated and you don't have to deal with these problems ever again. But it's more like, and now next time that this problem happens, I might have a game plan, or I can remember what happened last time, or I can reach out to people from my group and ask them how they handled it. And it's really fantastic.
I love that. And next question is on to like facilitation style and what kind of environment you try to create for the people in the group. So Gittel first. Now I can see where teacher thing might
Yes,
come
I'm
in. Yeah.
like, this is where the middle school teacher experience comes in for sure.
Yeah.
And one of the things, so I taught 7th grade, which are like the middle children of middle school. And we would also use a phrase, the kids that we love the most, right? Because the better phrase would have been like the kids who need the most love, who need that attention, who need that. But one of the most valuable things that I learned was differentiation for these students, and knowing that not everyone is at the same place and everyone does need a different approach and a different style, and learning to be flexible in that. So learning that it really does depend on the group vibe. Like sometimes you'll get a group that is very chatty, just everybody wants to contribute and everyone wants to share. And then you'll have other groups where that's not the case. And I am willing and ready to like just keep talking until somebody else does, like that kind of thing. But it's just, yeah, that flexibility and approach. And I hesitate to say this is what I want to do, but as it's saying, I'm a good whatever. It's no, somebody else has to tell you that. You can't claim it for yourself. But I definitely try to create an environment like that's a safe space where you feel safe being vulnerable. Like in my classroom, like there was no such thing as a dumb question, or like that kind of thing. Whereas if you have the question, most likely somebody else does, and you actually have the bravery to bring it up. So just letting, for me, my approach, my style is more like letting the group show me what kind of approach they need, and then myself adapting to it.
I love that. And I just would add that, so we've had for the last 5 years, there's been a group that just organically evolved that's called the graduates group, the alumni group. So for people who, after their initial 14-week group experience, they say, some of the people are like, I'm good, I'm equipped, I'm empowered, I'm ready to, or I don't have any more time to spend on this, I'm going to go live my life. That's awesome. Or if you're like, hey, I want to keep checking in with this wonderful group of like-minded individuals, we have an ongoing alumni group that meets once a week. And so in that group, you have filled in for me numerous times before I even have a full training program. And I think it's always evident that, or it's been evident to me, even within the context of you as a group member, but also as like a leader and facilitator now, that you do have that, just, you have that forever teacher like perspective, and that just calm, open-minded, warm, loving, supportive vibe, which is just, it's so great. Because one of my professors in occupational therapy school, all his research is around something called mood contagion or emotional contagion, and how we all affect each other's moods. And I think that's a fascinating thing to experience in the group process, where we all do affect each other. So you help set the tone. Thank you for that. Now, Eileen, what is your facilitation style? How would you describe it, and the environment you try to create?
I generally like to make sure that everyone has space to share, which can be a little bit difficult as a facilitator because you do have to play timekeeper, and always trying to make sure that people feel like they've had the opportunity to share and see what they want to say, but also understanding if it's a larger group, we're going to have to keep things a little bit shorter, I guess, by the book in that case, I would say. But also, I like to keep mine very informative, given that I'm a research nerd, so I soak up all this information. I like to be respectful of differences in people. We're all different. Arthritis affects different kinds of people. I also usually like to throw in a little bit of dark humor. Of course. And I think it's also really important as a facilitator to allow people to feel the emotions and pivot when needed. So if somebody's having more of, I don't want to, like, they're having strong emotions that are coming out from one of the questions or something that comes up during the meeting, it's okay to take a few extra moments and just let them feel it and just support them in however which way we can. So yeah, I just think that's a really important approach to also take it. So again, like what Gittel said, is just read the room, see what the vibe is. No session's the same.
Exactly. And I was thinking, as you said, dark humor, that both you and Gittel and I, all three of us, and Chrissy, who is also facilitating a group currently, we all use humor in different ways. Like maybe Eileen, yours is a little more dark humor, but Gittel, you're like a meme queen too. Like you have a lot of great memes on hand. We sometimes communicate in the chat during the support group session. We'll communicate via memes, and that's a fun thing. And I know you, Eileen, earlier you said you're not like the most touchy-feely person, but you're always compassionate and supportive, which I think it just comes out with your own personality flavor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all different. Just because I'm not warm and fuzzy. It doesn't mean I'm not a nice person.
No, you're extremely empathetic, extremely compassionate. And I think that compassion, it comes in just different flavors and different colors. And yeah.
Yeah. And that once again reminds me of my classroom experience because I had the fortune of having a co-teacher. So I was the English language arts, history, and health teacher. And then my partner teacher was a math and science teacher. And we had what Eileen and I have going on. Like the students knew if they wanted someone that was more warm and fuzzy, someone that was going to spend a little more time talking it out with them and their feelings, they would come to Miss Aguilar. But if they wanted someone that was just like, gonna get to it, no, I don't want that warm and fuzzy stuff, just like direct to the point, they went to Miss Kelly. And that was, it's just great to have those like diversity of that. Yeah.
I love that. And is there anything else either of you would want to say about how your past experiences have helped you as a facilitator for Room to Thrive? Oh, maybe. I don't know if you have anything else to say because I feel like you covered it nicely already.
Just, it's been really good being on both sides of it. So having been a member and a participant and then becoming like I feel like I did like steps. And then the next step I did was I was like a fly in the wall participant for some of your groups to just put it in and help it out. And then next I started like facilitating whenever you weren't there and like getting there to this certified facilitator role.
Yeah, that totally. Yeah, it makes sense. Actually, yes, when I was saying that I was now having a training program for new facilitators, someone reached out to me who I know would be a good facilitator, but they haven't even done the program yet. So I said, I would love you to first join so that you really understand this is a unique program. There's something else really like it that I'm aware of out there. So I'd want to make sure you completely understood I know it's good for most people because that's the feedback we get, but yeah, you've been an integral part of it. And now that I've been doing it for 6 years, I'm not making as many changes as I did in the beginning. But the first few years, I was really iterating and changing the program based on feedback from people in the group. And so in that sense, it's been a little bit kind of quote unquote co-created, right, with the feedback from the group members, which has been cool. Couple last questions before we wrap up. For someone listening, maybe Eileen first, for someone listening who's on the fence about whether or not to join the support group specifically, what would you want them to know?
I think that they won't really know unless they try it. And they might be surprised that they will enjoy it and that they will get benefits out of it that they would also be surprised to get and probably wouldn't expect.
That's a great point. Yeah. What about you, Gittel?
I wanted to point out that you can be as involved as you want in these groups. So I really appreciate like sometimes, no, this camera is not turning on. The camera's staying off. Sometimes I am in bed and I turn the camera horizontal, right? Like sometimes I just participate in the chat and not in the actual, like I feel like there are just so many options. Oh, the watching replays, because you give us the replays of all the meetings. So sometimes if I'm unable to make it to a meeting, it's almost like my comfort show to watch the replays. And then, and also we have, so many things. And then we also have access to the Discord group where same thing, where it's like, I still have access to my community and I don't need to wait until a meeting in order to talk to anybody or ask questions. Or sometimes it'll even be like, I want to bring this up at the next meeting. And it's like my accountability part. So all of that versus what Eileen was talking about earlier, where an in-person commitment can be very challenging, right? Like sometimes I use all my spoons just getting ready and doing the commute. And by the time I actually get there, I'm like, I don't want to be here. I want to go back home and lay down. And now it's like, I'm not even going to be engaged and able to participate the way that I want. But guess what? With this group, I can be in bed laying down and still participate and be part of this. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, we definitely there's no requirement to have your video on or off. There's no requirement to talk. And it's funny, everyone in the group has been so lovely. And one person who was a little bit on the shy side, she told me at the end, somebody who had ended up participating a lot and contributing a lot to the group. She said, when I signed up for this, I was nervous and I told myself, you don't have to talk at all. You don't have to talk at any of the meetings. And she was not planning on ever sharing in the meeting, but she ended up, I'm not saying this will happen for everyone, but she ended up feeling really comfortable after a couple of weeks. And she really surprised herself how much she ended up sharing and connecting. And I think it was because when people think about a support group, a lot of times they think about what they themselves are going to have to share about themselves, which first of all, you're never required to share anything. But it's what ends up being so therapeutic often is you responding to others. So you listen to someone else's story, and then if you have something helpful or supportive to share to them, it's therapeutic to you, even though you're not quote unquote like receiving help in that moment explicitly. Does that make sense?
I love that. And sometimes it's not even help. It's just solidarity. Like the number of times that we'll hear that where we're just like, I'm sorry, I don't have any advice or anything. I just want to say I have been there too. And it was very difficult. And I'm sorry that you're going through it too. Like just hearing those words is so meaningful.
Yeah, 1,000%. And Eileen, you already answered that. Sorry. I got off on my schedule here a little bit. Last one before we go to the rapid fire. What are some common worries that you've seen? I guess I already addressed one, which is they're going to make me talk or go around the circle and everyone has to say something. It's not that kind of group. Some groups are like that. But yeah, and what are some of the common worries you've seen that people have before joining a group like this and what usually maybe happens instead? Eileen.
I think I would say the most common thing I myself felt, and I would think other people would be thinking, is that they're going to ask something stupid. That's never the case. Like everybody needs to know there's so much misinformation out there. If you're curious about what the people are saying, you're not being stupid. You're just being curious. Yeah, so there is no wrong question. And then also, if people are like afraid that they don't have answers or they don't know the terminology yet, they have to realize that they're learning and they'll eventually get it all.
Absolutely. Yeah. What would you add to that, Gittel?
That reminds me of some of our first groups where we were like, oh, some of us feel like freshmen, like newly diagnosed, have no idea. Like some of us feel like the wise fools of sophomores, and some of us felt like juniors just going through it. And then seniors were like, I've been doing this for a while now. It still sucks and I still need help and everything, but I don't feel like a freshman. And so having that different diversity of voices and experiences is great. And for me to use phrases, once again, it's my whole ignorance is bliss versus knowledge is power kind of thing. Like I understand the hesitation of not wanting to join this and wanting to bury your head in the sand or put your blinders up and say, ignorance is bliss. I don't want to deal with this stuff. And unfortunately, our bodies are like, too bad, so sad. You're going to deal with it regardless, whether you want to or not. And so instead, leaning into the knowledge is power part of it, as Eileen was saying, with all the information, and it leads you to feeling empowered. Like it leads you to feeling like you have more of a handle, you have more of an idea, you have more of a strategy that you want to try. And even though we talk about there's no plateau that you get to, that you're just like, okay, I did it, I win, I've graduated, even though we call ourselves graduates and alumni. We graduated the program, but not like the experiences. I forgot where I was going with that.
No, but it's like a lifelong learner model.
Yes,
There's things
right.
I'm learning 23 years into this. And it's funny because I was talking to my own therapist and he was like, I was saying something that I've said in the group before. I may have outright acknowledged it, but I'm like, sometimes I'm like, why am I struggling with this? I'm the person who created the program that's supposed to help people and I can't even figure it out myself. But trying to get into a new rheumatologist is my current thing I'm going through right now. And I'm like, I teach people how to navigate the healthcare system and I can. Now, that is a lot of pressure to put on yourself, by the way, to say that you're going to teach. I definitely don't say that I successfully teach everyone in the course how to completely navigate the health system. But I don't think actually anyone knows exactly how to, but at least teach you some basic rules. But he said, what was interesting that he said is, so he's a psychiatrist and I actually have a number of other psychiatrists on my caseload and they'll say the same thing too. I didn't ever thought of this, but like I knew a lot of mental health professionals see therapists themselves, but there's this pressure that they'll put on themselves because they're like, I'm a psychiatrist or I'm a psychologist. I'm supposed to know, but it's so different knowing how to help someone else versus doing it yourself, helping people in the group process. It's like we help each other unburden this pressure to be the perfect patient and do everything perfectly all the time. Because I think that's a lot of guilt people carry. They'll come into the group and say, oh my gosh, like my doctor said, or my nutritionist said, I'm not supposed to eat sugar. And then I like totally failed last night by eating one cookie. It's like, there's literally no evidence that unless you have like celiac disease, you are not harming your body by eating one cookie. Like we'll help each other kind of see the forest through the trees and not
like
be
sometimes you need to treat yourself.
Yes, like moderation. And One thing people sometimes ask is, do you have groups for just newly diagnosed or like just ankylosing spondylitis, just psoriatic arthritis, or just younger people or older people? Truth be told, when I first started this, I did assume that, okay, long term, I thought it'd be a good idea to have more specialized groups. And I do think that there's a very basic human need when you get diagnosed with something to meet someone else with that exact diagnosis. But because, frankly, it's not big enough at this point to have a whole bunch of different groups, what's ended up being the case that is an unexpected benefit of having a diversity within the category of inflammatory arthritis. We have a diversity of diagnoses and a real diversity of ages of people in the group, ranging from, it's all adults, ranging from about 20 to about, I think, maybe 80. The majority of people are maybe 30s to 50s. And range of genders, now we're not as diverse on gender, not as diverse on racial and ethnic background. But what's ended up in it being so great about having a range of experiences, not everyone's newly diagnosed. Some people have had it. Christina took the program. She had rheumatoid arthritis for over 15 years. She was like one of the biggest cheerleaders for it because she's like, guys, I remember what it was like trying to piecemeal this together on my own. You don't realize, the newly diagnosed, how lucky you are that we're going through this in a step-by-step way. And of course, she could just share, hey, like I survived this horrible flare-up, or I had a baby. Like having different people in the group, very long way to say that. It's really great having different experiences. Long story, short story long, as some of my friends say. Last two questions. First one, I know you both answered this numerous times already, but it's always fun to see today. What are some of your favorite words of wisdom to tell someone who is newly diagnosed with an inflammatory form of arthritis? How about Eileen? Do you want to go first?
I would say cross-reference what information you are finding. For myself, it was looking at a variety of pages, not just one, and making sure I was checking the Arthritis Society, the Arthritis Foundation, Arthritis UK, and wherever, and making sure what I was reading was matching up to everywhere rather than the sea of misinformation that is out there. I think that is one of the best ways to feel empowered and of course, your course as well will help them navigate all that too.
Thank you. First, that's very true. I provide citations for every single thing that I cite in my program. But that being said, the science is always changing. The last time I did a massive update to all the slides and all the presentations a couple years ago, there's already new things I need to add and want to add. So cross-referencing, getting multiple references is so important. What about you, GT? What would you say to someone newly diagnosed?
I love that to actually piggyback off of that. Or to continue that thought. It's more knowing that everybody's different, as in every body is different. So even if we have the exact same diagnosis and are the same age and come from the same area and even have the same diet, there's no guarantee that our symptoms are going to look the same. And there's no guarantee that the treatments that work for us are going to be the same. So I love that cross-referencing kind of thing, because it's like, yeah, one person said this, but everybody is different. So it could be very different. And the other thing that I wanted to say as well is that it can feel like a lot because it is a lot. So it's not all in your head, and be gentle with yourself and take things one moment at a time, is what I would say.
I love that. One moment at a time, one breath at a time, 1 minute at a time. I love that. And last one, Eileen, what does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive with, in your case, multiple forms of autoimmune arthritis?
Be able to do what I need to and want to do, but living with arthritis, you have to make adaptations and learn to pace yourself. So it's thriving with arthritis means learning how to live with this disease and not letting it bring me down.
I love that. Perfect example, just because this is so topical. Eileen and I just attended the Arthritis Foundation Pathways Conference in Seattle, which is really kind of like a volunteer celebratory summit. And I had all these plans of things I wanted to take her to after the event on Saturday, but we were so exhausted. We went home, took naps, and then watched reruns of Chopped while ordering takeout. And it was amazing. It was so fun. And being able to pivot and adapt and really lean into, this is plan B and that's okay. We're not exploring every single site and of Seattle while you're visiting, and that's okay. So anyway, that's just a fun example. What does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive with rheumatic disease?
Before I answer my part of that,
Yeah.
I just want to say, because you said plan B, and one of my favorite things is the alphabet has 26 letters. So if you need a plan C, a plan D, a plan E.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. But yeah,
Love
for
it.
me, what it means to live a good life and thrive with autoimmune arthritis, it means dealing with it, like not ignoring it, dismissing it, gaslighting myself, and accepting reality for what it is. And this is something that my therapist told me that I love it. I should probably tattoo it on myself. That yes, it could be worse, because we say that to ourselves all the time, right? It's not that bad. It could be worse. Yes, it could be worse, but it could also be better. It could also be better. So it is what it is, and dealing with the reality of what it is and not getting lost in it could be worse or it could be better, and just, yeah, staying in the
I
moment.
love that. I absolutely love that. This has been so great. I know we could talk about these topics all day long, but I loved just catching up with you both a little bit. And I hope people might be listening to this at different times, but you can always look at the show notes to see when the latest Rheum to Thrive support group option is going to be starting. You can also see it at the Arthritis Life website, arthritis.theenthusiasticlife.com, under the Rheum to Thrive tab. The self-paced course is available for enrollment year-round. It's all pre-recorded videos of me delivering the educational information, and the support group is a couple of times a year we open that up, and it's cohort-based, sequential, so you start with one group and you finish with one group. You can't join in the middle. Where can people, I'll put both your links in the show notes, but where can people find you online if they want to follow you?
I'm easy to find online. Just Google Chronic Eileen on whatever platform you're looking.
Yeah, you're so smart. You got it all organized much better than me. What about you, Gittel?
I was able to get the same screen name on IG and Threads, which is Gittel, which is GITTEL_GT. Because like I said, my name is Gittel and I go by GT. So I wanted that to be represented there. And then on Blue Sky, I got an account, and that one is just my first name, Gittel, GITTEL.
Oh, nice. You got in early. I love it. Thank you both so much, not only for being here today, but for taking the time to become my very first, plus Chrissy and soon to be Lauren, are my very first group of Rheum to Thrive certified facilitators. And this program is very much like my little quote unquote baby. And it's been really, honestly, it's been so great having you all involved that I'm like, why did I not do this earlier? But better late than never. Self-coach versus self-critic. So thank you both so much, and we will follow up with you later. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is supported by Rheum to Thrive, an educational program I created to help empower you to live life to the fullest with rheumatic disease. In the program, you're going to learn evidence-based tools for managing all the ways rheumatic disease affects your life. And my goal is to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. You can go through the pre-recorded modules on your own in the self-paced course, or you can take the course along with a robust support group of new arthritis friends to support you and cheerlead you along the way. Learn more in the link in my show notes, or you can always go to www.myarthritislife.net. And if you like this podcast, I'd be so honored if you took the time to rate and review it. I also encourage you to share it with anyone you know who might benefit from it. I also want to remind you that you can find full transcripts, videos, and detailed show notes with hyperlinks for each episode on the Arthritis Life website, plus full episode videos on the Arthritis Life YouTube channel. If you have any ideas for content for future episodes, or you want to share your story on the podcast, please send me, Cheryl, an email at info@myarthritislife.net. I can't wait to hear from you, and thanks so much again for your time.